everyone, and welcome to StudioJake. I, of course, am your host, Jacob Airy. Today, I have a very special guest. I know her from back when No Safe Spaces was just coming out. This is Kingsley Cortes, and now she is with Gettr, the alternative tech social media website, which I am proudly on. I post all my content in there, no matter if it's an article or a video. I post all my content on Gettr, and I am super excited to talk to her about it. Kingsley, thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much for having a Gettr account, first of all. Glad to have you on the platform, and thanks for having me on. Happy to be here.
Oh yeah, and I tell all my listeners, they'll let you know I support alternate tech. I especially support Gettr, and so I'm very excited to talk about it. And one of the things that I wanted to ask about Gettr is, first of all, why the name? What I have a feeling I know why, but just for people who might be unfamiliar with Gettr, maybe they just are now hearing about it. What does Gettr mean? What does it represent?
Yeah, so this is a question we get a lot. Gettr basically stands for Get Together. And our CEO kind of envisions our app. Our mission in its essence really is just a place where people can talk and where they can get together and exchange ideas without fear of censorship, without fear of shadow banning and all of the other things we see these big tech overlords doing, right? So it's just a space where people can truly have a conversation and engage in dialogue without being judged. And a lot of conservatives have really enjoyed that because so many of them for so long have been under the thumb of big tech, right? I know I've been banned from Twitter. I have friends who have been banned from Instagram, Facebook. So this is something that I think as conservatives we really need. And honestly, I think it goes farther than that, right? Because right now, yes, Gettr has a lot of conservatives, but we welcome everybody. We have, I think, one CNN reporter on there. Tulsi Gabbard is probably our most prominent Democrat that we have on there. So we encourage all sides of the aisle to come and to have a discussion. That's really what we're about.
And it certainly has expanded. Because I remember when I first signed up in the very early days, there was no video. It was just microblogging. And now, though, you have live content. I've seen several conservative news outlet like Newsmax and Real America Voice News. They've all done live streams. We've had independent creators do live stream. Expand on that a little bit as far as going from just kind of a textual social media app to now you're doing live stream. What was that process like?
Definitely. So one thing that we found when we launched Gettr was not only everyday people, felt the pressures of censorship from big tech, but so did creators and a lot of news outlets and people who, love to post videos and photos and things of that nature. So we really want to empower creators at Gettr. And one way that I think we do that that's a really unique, really cool feature is our live stream feature. So this is something that we're rolling out. We're beta testing it right now. I don't like betas, so we'll say we're alpha testing it right now. But that's a feature that I think a lot of people are really excited about. And it's really cool. We have a lot of people, who will just go to different Trump rallies or political rallies around the world. We had people live streaming from Bolsonaro and Zemmour rallies in France. So it's a cool way to kind of feel connected to the community. I was just at CPAC last weekend and we did a ton of live streaming there. And you mentioned Newsmax and Real America's Voice too. It's also a really fun way to kind of watch the news. You don't have to give Xfinity your business anymore. If you really love watching Newsmax, you can do it on Gettr.
And that is something really cool. And one thing that I feel lacks in a lot of the alternative tech is they don't have the unless it's a video-based platform, obviously, but they don't have a lot of video-oriented thing. It's mostly microblogging or just full-on similar to Substack type of situation. And whenever I see Gettr, there's like you're saying, it's constant expansion. I'm curious, where does Gettr see itself going as far as being a social media app? Because social media is here to stay, even if it evolves in a particular direction. What are some? Can you give us kind of a clue at some other cool features that Gettr is going to be rolling out?
Definitely, yeah. And I appreciate you pointing out that we're always adding new features. Our engineers, I swear they never sleep. But we are really, really excited to be rolling out DMs in about a month. That I think will, just empower people to engage with each other even more. And then kind of similar to the live stream, we're going to be rolling out a short video similar to a TikTok or an Instagram Reels feature. And I'm personally, as a young person, really excited about that because I think that's truly the future of social media. We've just seen TikTok explode. And I think it's because I guess us young people, maybe we have short attention spans, but we love these quick videos where you can just keep swiping, right? And engage with a lot of content that way. So that's something that I'm particularly excited about. And I think, TikTok is definitely dangerous in its CCP ownership and all of that stuff that comes with it. So I think offering an alternative where people can post that sort of content, but on a platform that, is really, really for free speech will be something that's really cool.
And again, one of the things that I appreciate about Gettr is when big tech said, hey, we're going to still censor certain people, so go build your own platform, Gettr said, okay. And so they did. And I'm curious, though, because we've also seen attacks on other alternative social media platforms. And I'm just curious, what are some steps that Gettr is taking to, protect users' privacy and to make sure that they're not shut down if the censorship mob rallies and it's like, we're going to get Gettr shut down. What are some steps that Gettr is just taking just as far as security goes? And obviously you don't have to go into too much detail, but just I'm curious how they are working to defend against that.
Yeah, no, definitely a great question. I'll start with the user side. So we made a commitment not to sell any of our users' data. And when you sign up for Gettr, we don't really ask you for a lot of data at all. The only thing we ask you for is your birth year to make sure you're old enough. Though I'm sure people lie, but we try to make sure people are old enough. And then your email, and then whatever username you want, and your password. So it's not a ton of information that we're asking for. And we don't, we're not going to sell it to any sort of advertisers. We're not going to sell emails, anything of that nature. So on the user side, we're really committed to protecting data. The other part of your question is a little bit trickier to answer, right? This is something I got asked a ton at CPAC. How will you ensure you don't get taken off the App Store like Parler was? And I think it's a fair question, but I think one thing that we've really just gone above and beyond on is moderation. And that was something that I think Parler kind of got into hot water with. They weren't really monitoring their platform. So they had, child porn, beheadings, things of that nature. That kind of stuff will take you off of the App Store in a heartbeat. So what we did is we have AI moderation, which is our system that will flag various things. It's just totally computerized. And then we also have human moderators. So that kind of dual-pronged system, I think, will really give us an edge in terms of Apple deciding if we can or cannot stay. And again, that's part of the problem, right? You talk about, they say build your own. So if you want to build your own app store, Jacob, I would be on that in a second. That would help me sleep better at night for sure. But yeah, I mean, building our own apps is only the first step, right? There's so much more that we can do. So yeah, and I would also just kind of throw in there at the end, I don't think it's appropriate for me to discuss, where our servers are and all of that stuff, but we feel very confident that we'll be in an okay place if anything is to happen.
And that makes sense. And I want to ask you a devil's advocate's question real quick. And because this is something that I have heard as far as people criticizing Gettr, as you mentioned, moderation. Now, I believe personally there is a difference between moderation and censorship. However, I have seen this pushback with people who are saying, no, any form of moderation is censorship. Now, like I said, I disagree with that, but just playing devil's advocate, how would you push back on that criticism? Because I've heard certain people have said they got banned, and then when you dig down to it, it was, in my opinion, a bannable offense why they got pushed off of Gettr. I won't go into specifics, but I'm just curious of that pushback. Where do you see the line between moderating content so it's still friendly for users, but also censorship where someone's not just getting thrown out in a similar fashion to, say, Twitter?
Yeah, no, to be totally honest with you, it's a really hard question to answer, right? And it's something that we discuss pretty much every day here, especially, even right now as we see videos coming out of Russia and Ukraine, just kind of deciding what's too gory for our platform and things of that nature. So it's definitely something that, we wrestle with every day. But our terms of service are something that we are continually updating and improving, and they're on our website. So it's clearly spelled out there for our users, kind of content that isn't permissible on the platform. And that would be things like, beheadings, as I mentioned earlier, porn, doxing. We recently had to ban a user for doxing and it got a little bit of traffic, right? You can't post, I hate Jacob Berry, I'm going to kill him, this is his address, everyone come, right? You can't do stuff like that. So
Sure.
there's definitely, lines, and I think people say, oh, but it's not free speech. What we want is a community that's free from political censorship, right? Where it's political free speech. And we want our platform to be family friendly. We want, high schoolers that are 18 and voting for the first time to be able to get on and engage with news and talk about various issues that are important to them. And we don't want them to have to run into inappropriate content or material. So I would encourage, everyone, if they're curious, just to go check out our terms of service. It's pretty easy to find on our website, and I think that they're, pretty clear. And I will say, too, we're also rolling out some community guidelines. Those are in the works right now, just to kind of further clarify, we say this isn't allowed. Here are some examples. Here's exactly what we mean, so that there's no questions. Because, yeah, I think a lot of people are really, really scared that these platforms will just continue to bend to the whims of, the Apple Store or the Google Play Store or whatnot. And we want to kind of reassure people we're not going to do that. But there are behaviors that are not permissible on our platform, and here they are.
And that's something that a lot of social media platforms don't do. They make their terms of service very vague. And one thing that happens all the time here on YouTube, right? They'll say, "Oh, you violated this term of service," and she'll say, "Well, could you be specific?" And they'll send you a quote. And it could be interpreted any way where you're like, I don't understand how I violated this. And I feel like that has on the major platforms, on the big tech stuff, that has kind of become how they weaponize things. So we see this with Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, even now that Facebook owns Instagram. And I don't see it getting any better. People keep saying, oh, if we keep pushing back, we jump on other platforms like Gettr, they'll clean up their act. They'll stop caving to the censorship mob. And I don't see that ever happening, honestly. I think it would take almost a total collapse for them to finally say, okay, we're going to stop censoring conservatives for saying this, or even moderates for saying that. What do you think? Because I hate to sound like I'm black-pilled, but I just don't see the major platforms ever surrendering to sort of the woke censorship model. What do you think?
No, I certainly agree with you. I hate to be negative as well, but you're right. They don't really tell you what they censor you for, too. I was banned from Twitter just a couple weeks ago for quote unquote vaccine misinformation, which, is difficult to know what that is, right? Because the goalposts are so constantly shifting throughout this pandemic. So yeah, it's incredibly frustrating. And I think that you're right. I think that big tech has been so emboldened. And that was something, so I worked on the Trump 2020 campaign with our CEO, Jason Miller. And I think that campaign, in a lot of ways, was a big wake-up call in terms of big tech. We saw them censor the president of the United States, right? Mm-hmm. So they've gotten so brazen and so cocky, so bold. I think they truly think that they're gods. And that, for us at least, kind of jump-started the need for an alternate platform, an alternate place where we could go and say, hey, the vaccine's experimental. I have some questions about it. So that's something that, was kind of the driving force for us launching Gettr. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't see these big tech oligarchs in your state in Silicon Valley ceding any territory anytime soon. And I think, too, that they have a lot of support from the Biden administration, right? I know Psaki has said on the record, if you've been banned on one platform, you should be banned on every platform. She's also said that the White House has flagged misinformation online for Facebook. So I think, too, the fact that the government is working hand in hand with big tech really just kind of makes them feel that much more powerful, right? So I think unfortunately, I think you're right. But hopefully platforms like Gettr and others can begin to fight back.
And and this is another thing, is one thing I appreciate about Gettr is, now people might say, oh, there's opportunities there for things to go wrong, but I like how things are kept in-house, because Facebook has what they call this Oversight committee. And they're actually not people in Facebook. They're people from England, from here in America, from Canada. And I actually one time got to participate in a Q&A with them, and I asked, because they actually said that Facebook and Twitter should not suspend President Trump, but they did anyway. And so I asked them, well, if they're going to do what you say is unethical or wrong, why do you even exist? And of course, they had no answer. It was just a way for these big tech companies to say, oh, see, we have an oversight committee, but when I feel like in a way that's almost like caving to big government. So we're going to go from the people who are in the company, we're going to go to the oversight committee, who are, former government actors, or maybe they're other tech oligarchs, or whatever. And do you see a benefit to that sort of, where you have this, almost nameless oversight? I know I'm sounding negative because I just think it's a big joke, but in all seriousness, you feel free to disagree with me. What do you think about because those kind of oversight committees, I think that they're just to give the big tech people cover, and they serve no other purpose outside of that, as opposed to keeping it in-house where the team can keep each other accountable and what's going on. What do you think?
Definitely, yeah. And I think those oversight committees, they have a lot of different loyalties, right? And they're not loyalties to the average, 40-year-old single mother in Iowa who's on the platform, right? They're loyal to big tech, they're loyal to big government, and they're loyal to corporations, right? Most often. So that's something that we'll never do at Gettr. But you talked about kind of the global impact of all this too, how people in other countries didn't want the president to be banned. That's something that's been really, really interesting working at Gettr. Something that I've never really thought of before is essentially 50% of every country feels marginalized by big tech. So we've grown a ton in Brazil, we've grown a ton in France and in Germany, and we're breaking into Japan and India now, which is really exciting. But you and I get frustrated, right, when these Silicon Valley nerds in hoodies tell us what we can and can't say. Imagine if you're not even American. That's kind of been the most eye-opening thing for me. Someone halfway across the world that knows nothing about you or your culture is censoring what you can say. It's absolutely insane. So that's something, too, that I think is really an opportunity for Gettr, for us to grow globally and kind of give communities across the world a voice, especially ones who are politically persecuted.
And and this goes to the mainstream media, because if it had not been for platforms like Gettr, we wouldn't have known the truth about something like, say, what was going on in Canada with the Freedom Convoy. The mainstream media developed this narrative similar to how they would do for the Tea Party, which I participated in the Tea Party, full disclosure. But someone who is from America, if they had just been listening to what the mainstream media here was saying, they were just regurgitating what the Canadian mainstream media was saying, which was, oh, these people are ists and phobes. But with platforms like Gettr, we were able to say, oh, these are just regular working moms and dads who just want to be able to drive their truck without freedom of being forced to participate in a medical activity they don't want to. I have to be careful what I say for the YouTube censors, but don't have to be careful on Gettr, fortunately. But I'm curious, do you see that with Gettr and these other alternative platforms, where we can actually see what's going on and we don't have to listen to mainstream media propaganda?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I'm a big Steve Bannon fan and he's a big user on our platform. It's, I think, the only place you can hear directly from him. He's not on Twitter, been banned and all of that stuff. And he always says signal, not noise, right? And I think Gettr is a great place for signal. You mentioned the truckers in Canada. Now we have truckers in America who I believe are headed to DC fairly soon. And they've been really active on our platform. They've been live streaming on our platform. And you're right, without Gettr and Rebel News being one of the accounts that I think covered it the most up in Canada, we wouldn't have known exactly what was happening because they were telling mainstream media outlets, get lost essentially. And I think that independent media is the future in many ways. I even think of the Kyle Rittenhouse example, right? If we didn't have people whipping out their cell phones, we might not have ever really known what truly happened that night. So the ability for users to be able to live stream, to be able to, whip out that cell phone, take photos, document, explain, describe what's happening without big tech allowing whoever is directing them to set a certain narrative. I think it's really, really important, and I think it's only going to get more important as we go forward.
And I totally agree. And so, Kinsley, I'm going to give you the final word. Anything else you want to add to, the direction Gettr is going, or about Gettr, or anything else? I'm going to let you finish this out.
Yeah, thank you. I would just encourage everyone to join the platform. You can head to gettr.com or you can go to the Google Play or Apple App Store and download it on your phone. Super simple sign up process, takes about 30 seconds. But yeah, come see what we're about since we don't shadow ban or anything like that. It's really, really easy to gain a lot of followers quickly and find a really cool community of folks and just discuss. So definitely come join us at Gettr. We'd love to have you.
And of course, you can find me on Gettr at RealJakeberry. It's the same as my Twitter and Instagram handle, so definitely head over there. Find me. Like I said, I post all my content from my website, from my vidcast. Everything goes up on Gettr. So if you're tired of big tech censorship, head over there and check it out. All my other links are in the description below. And I want to thank everyone who is watching, who will watch. Share this video out, give it a like, leave a comment. And I'll see you next time right here on StudioJake. Kinsley, thank you again for coming on.
Thanks so much.
If you enjoyed that video, be sure to hit the like button, leave me a comment below, share this video out, and I would really appreciate it if you chose today to become a subscriber to StudioJake. Thank you so much for watching. You can follow me on all my socials that are in the description of this video, and I'll see you next time right here on StudioJake.